Hi, welcome to GRVO TV, G's Reviews, Views and Opinions. I'm just going to do my second video regarding the Nikon D610, my new full frame camera. And all I'm going to do really is go through the features. Now, previously I've gone through the features based on people that perhaps have upgraded from a D7000 and a D7100 or a D5100 or something like that. And I've sort of taken for granted a lot of the great things about this camera. So I'm going to try and go through all the things that I think are great, but sometimes overlooked, especially when we're reviewing cameras we're very familiar with. So first of all, I want to talk about its ruggedness. Is there a ruggedness scale? I can't even say that. Anyway, so it is weather sealed. And quite well weather sealed. I mean, they don't tell you how it is, but I've previously spoken to Nikon about this, and you know what they are expected to sort of withstand, and basically it will be absolutely fine in a reasonable shower. I wouldn't want to go and get it completely soaking, dripping wet. And as I've said in my previous video about the ruggedness of the D7000. A lot of looking after your equipment is how you dry it out, and making sure you dry it out naturally. Don't force it. Don't try and wipe all the wet off. Try and absorb it with some kitchen paper to stop it getting in all the nooks and crannies. But essentially, this is a weather sealed body. Most of the Nikon lenses are weather sealed, and they all have arse gaskets, so it should be absolutely fine. I'd have no issues shooting this in the rain whatsoever. So there you go. Secondly, we'll just go through the specs. I mean, it is a 24.3 megapixel full frame Sony sensor. It's I think fairly similar to the sensor in the new Alpha 7, whatever, the A7. I know it's a Sony sensor because I tried plugging it into the internet and going online doing one of these like shutter count things, and it says, oh sorry, we don't do compatibility with Sony cameras. So I'm pretty sure it's a Sony sensor, and that's by no means a bad thing. The sensor in my D7000 is pretty much the same as the NEX6 that I'm recorded on now. It's a lovely sensor, so that's a good thing. There is a crop function, so you could look at it as though your 70 to 200mm lens becomes a 70 to 300 with the crop function. When you crop it, you obviously only get something like a 10 megapixel image, but the pixels are bigger, the light absorbing qualities are better, so it's probably better than a 10 megapixel camera. And when you're shooting sort of uncompressed raw images, I don't think you'll have any problems with the cropped images out of this. Again, that's a nice feature to have, and you can use old DX lenses on this if you want, if you've got some hanging around. I've had people tell me that the 35mm 1.8 actually works on here quite well. Obviously you're going to get a little bit of vignetting, but essentially it works really well. And the lens that comes with it, the kit lens 24 to 85, is a perfectly adequate lens, to be honest, anyway, so there's no issues there. So going again through features, it shoots at 6 frames per second in continuous high, and it's a nice system because you've got single shot, continuous low, which I have set to, like, you can have set to 3 or 4. I have it set to 4, then continuous high, the quiet continuous, and then you mirror up, timers, etc. The quiet continuous is nonsense. I'm sorry, but I read an article yesterday in a brochure that said near silent shooting with the continuous quiet mode, and it just isn't. If you can tell me that this is this is Nikon's own words, near silent shooting. So we'll just pop it into quiet continuous mode, which shoots at I think it's like 3 frames per second. That is not near silent. Now we just go into continuous load. I think I've got it set to 4 frames per second. It's just a different sound. It's not any quieter. I mean, I've looked at the levels that come out, and it doesn't seem that different. So, you know, if that floats your boat, then that's fine. But what essentially you can have is 1, 3, 4 and 6 frames per second set up, which is quite nice to have. So, you know, that's not a bad thing, and it is what it is. But there you go. Moving on, you've got all the usual settings for the autofocus, and the way the autofocus works is there's a little switch down here which is an autofocus manual focus switch. There's also a button in it, and when you press the button and twiddle the dials, you can change from autofocus single to autofocus continuous, and you can go into then like auto, and then however many points you want, whether that be 9-point or 3D tracking or whatever it is. Yeah, 9-point tracking, 21, 39, 3D, and then auto. Generally I have it in single point, the middle one, which brings me on to another thing. The autofocus points are grouped in the middle of the frame. There's no getting away from that. There's 39 points, they're all grouped in the middle. I actually quite like it because when I'm using a camera with like points all over the place, I find it never focuses on the things that I want it to. And I know people are out there saying, yeah, it always grabs focus and it focuses on exactly the thing I want. My cameras never do that. I think it's a load of nonsense. But with them all grouped in the middle, there's definitely more chance it grabs onto what I want it to. So I actually quite like it. Where it doesn't work so well is in continuous focus. If you're tracking moving subjects and you're perhaps doing sports and that, you've got to get them in that middle section. However, on the rare occasion that is going to happen and it's a problem, go into the crop mode, and then you're basically filling the frame like you would on the old D7000. So to me, no problem at all with that. Maximum shutter speed is 1/4000th of a second. It does not go to 1/8000th. So if that's an issue for you, there's nothing you can do about that. The ISO range goes down to something like 50 and up to 25,600, but it's basically 100 to 6400. And what's nice about that is that is a usable 100 to 6400. It's not a case of you get to 3200 and it's unusable. This can give usable pictures up to 6400. If you go into the high 0.3, high 0.7, high 1s and that, then you know you're going to start getting issues, and you're definitely going to need to be shooting in black and white, I think. So it's nice to not have where it says like 100 to 25,600 and actually none of that's usable. So the usable range is the range that's on there. So you could use this in auto ISO quite comfortably, and by using third stops gives you a bit more flexibility as well. So that's good. 2 SD card slots. I would recommend if you're shooting in RAW, and I shoot RAW and find JPEGs, RAW to one card, find JPEGs to the other, and also when I shoot video, it shoots video to the second card. And I would also recommend a minimum of a 16 gig card because of the file sizes, basically. I mean, ideally I'm going to switch up to 32 gig cards, but 16's minimum. 8's, you're not going to get many shots at all. Button layout is lovely. Everything falls to hand nicely. The on-off switch is there, the shutter button is there for you, and then you've got a wheel at the front and a wheel at the back, which you can use for your aperture and your shutter, and I have it set for ISO as well. You've got your AEL, AFL button there, which you can set to whatever you want. You can even have that as an AF on button if that's the way you autofocus. I've tried it and just can't get used to it, but that's one of those things. You've got a lock button for the rocker, so when you're in single point focus, if you knock the button, it won't move the focusing point, it stays where it is unless you unlock it, and that's nice. This switch is a bit complicated because it's got the lock, then a D-pad and an OK button in the middle, but because it's so well raised, it really works quite nicely. You've then got your live view switch here, which is live view for camera and video separately. That all works okay. Your record buttons on the top there with your exposure compensation and your metering mode, so everything's nice and easy to get to. As I've said, around this side you've got your autofocus settings there, and you've got your bracketing and your flash compensation button as well. While we're here, got the headphone and mic jacks, which is nice. You've got your USB and your HDMI, and also the GPS dongle bits there. And these are really nice. They're proper hinged doors with real deep sort of... my set just fell down. We'll press on. We'll just press on. Yeah, so you know, you can see that weather sealing coming through like in the doors there, which is really nice. On the front of the camera, it's difficult to see here, but there's two function buttons, one recessed in there, which is naturally where your finger, your second finger sort of sits, so it's nice and easy to get to that button whilst you're actually using the shutter, and you can set that up to all different things like AE lock, or I generally have it shot to, so if I press it, it will spot me to the camera, which can be useful. And then a function button down the bottom, which is set to, and I've left it to, changing between FX mode and DX crop mode, and that's handy to be able to do that quickly. You just press that, turn the dial, and it changes to crop mode, and then you get the crop lines in the viewfinder, which is quite nice. There is a artificial horizon, which is really nice on this. One of the extra features on this over the cameras I'm previously used to as well is there's a shooting sort of display button here, and if you're in the shooting mode and press that button, you go into set picture control. So if you're shooting in JPEGs, you can do standard, neutral, vivid, black and white, portrait or landscape, and it's just a nice quick way to go in and change the style of your pictures. I find that actually quite useful. And you've also got down the side your white balance, which you press and hold and turn it on there, and your ISO button down there. You've got an info button here which brings up all the information on the screen. The only thing I don't like about that is that the screen doesn't stay on, it goes off as soon as you press anything, and you have to press the info button to get it back on again. Lots of information, and you can change things on there, which is nice to have. If you press and hold the trash can button and the metering button, it will format the cards, and you press and hold both of them, the card will flash. You choose which card you want, press them again, and it formats the card, which is nice and easy. You don't have to go in through the menus. One nice thing on this, which I really like, is three things. You've got a multiple exposure mode, which means in the old days, taking two pictures without winding the film on, that kind of thing. You've got an interval timer shooting, so it's got a built-in intervalometer. It's dead easy to set up, which is fantastic. And also a time-lapse photography function as well. Now this is a proper time-lapse which will then give you a time-lapse movie. It's not just like an intervalometer that you then have to put it together and make it into a movie using processing. It does it for you, which is fantastic. Also on those types of things, you've got HDR, which is nice. It just takes a couple of pictures and does its HDR-ness inside the camera, which is a great feature. You've got vignette control, which will reduce some of the vignetting on, obviously with a full frame camera, with full frame lenses, you're more prone to vignetting than with a crop sensor camera. That's the nature of the beast, but that can easily be removed. Distortion control is built in as well, and you can set the levels of distortion control, so that depending on what levels, what lenses you're using, and what if you're taking pictures of straight lines, then distortion control can come in handy. It's a bit hit and miss as to how well that works, and I'd rather probably do that in post, but it's nice to have it. You've got active D-lighting, which again you can change the settings on. Everything else is pretty much as you expect. There's not many, there are some scene modes. If you go around here to scene, you can change the scene modes, and you've got beach and snow, parties, indoors, night landscape, night portrait, close-up, sports, child, landscape, portrait, low-key, high-key, silhouette, food, yawn, autumn colours, blossom, candlelight, pet portrait, dust, sunset, etc. So it has got those on there. There's also a no flash mode. You've got your PSAM modes as usual. You've got two user modes, which are really nice to have. I generally have them set up to a quick indoor and a quick outdoor setting. So if I'm changing indoor and outdoor on a shoot, and I've done it before. I've forgotten to change my ISO, and obviously if I'm indoors on my indoor setting, I just flick to outdoor setting, and that changes everything, including my ISO, to outdoor, so that's good. The general feel and weight of it is really nice. It's not a big heavy camera. It is metal on the top and the bottom, and the front section is plastic or polycarbonate, whatever you want to call it. You've got your pop-up flash. I only ever use that as a commander flash for off-camera flash. I never use it, well, I don't say I never. Very rarely do I use that as a little bit of fill-in flash, probably on a nice bright day like today. If you're shooting into the sun and you've got nothing else, then a little bit of fill-in flash can help. If I can, I'd use a reflector or an off-camera flash. But that works okay. The viewfinder. One of the things that I think is quite often overlooked, and this is what the D7000 did really well. So I'm not really that spoiled. Well, I've already been spoiled, to be honest. So this isn't a great step up for me. But if you're coming from something like a D3000 or 31200 or a D5100, you're going to be coming from a very small viewfinder. And when you look through this, it's massive. It's beautiful. It's bright. Obviously, it's crystal clear because there's no LED-ness. This is the image. You get some information. You get an in-focus recognition. So if you're manually focusing, you get a dot and 2 arrows that you can use. Shows you what metering mode you're in, your speed, your aperture, your ISO, how many shots left in the buffer. You can have a artificial horizon, which is just like LED dots at the bottom. It's not overlaid, but it's at the bottom. You've got grid lines on, so I've got my rule of thirds grid lines up. And it's just beautiful and bright. Magnification is 0.7 times, which is normal. 100% coverages, so what you're getting in the viewfinder is the picture you're going to get, which is lovely. And really, that's about it. The images that I've got out of it so far are very nice. File sizes are obviously bigger than I'm used to, but not horrendous. I shoot in RAW pretty much all the time now, and just put them into Lightroom and then do minimal editing, and they come out as you know, fairly big JPEGs. Yeah, if you're going to email them, you're going to need to reduce the size of them, etc. But they're not horrendously massive file sizes, and I've found no issues with speed of transferring the images or viewing the images or anything like that either. So as you can see, I am, or as I'm sure you can sense, I'm absolutely loving the camera at the moment. I'll talk about lenses a bit more in another sort of video once I might actually go out today. It's turned out into a nice day, so I might go out today and do some photos, and I'll review the kit lens, the 28-100 cheapo lens, my 50mm, and also my Sigma 70-200 2.8 lenses. So I'll review all those separately on here as well, to give you an idea on how they perform. So anyway, this is supposed to be a sort of a quick, but there's so much stuff on here that I think people need to know about, that I wanted to try and cover it off in one video, just about the camera. So there you go, that's my sort of quick overview on the Nikon D610. I hope you find this useful, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, bye.